By now, you've probably heard of quiet quitting. It's a phenomenon where workers scrape by doing as little as they can.
Well, guys, now it's spawned the birth of a phrase describing another workplace situation.
Kind of the flip side. Teresa Strasser's looking at quiet firing and how to fight back if you think you're a victim. That's our featured story at the top of the list.
You've probably heard the term quiet quitting, the act of doing the minimum amount of work required at your job. But what about quiet firing?
Quiet firing is when managers create an environment where employees will actually want to quit because of that environment.
In fact, this can be a passive-aggressive move by a manager to get an employee out the door.
They just don't want to go through all the complications and the hassles that can be involved in firing someone.
Scott Mouts, author of Leading from the Middle, shares his tips on how to fight back if you feel like a victim of this phenomenon. If you feel like it's happening to you, go to your manager and discuss expectations.
A lot of people mistakenly say, okay, what I need to do is go into accusation mode. I know you're trying to get me to quit, boss. Here's my evidence, bing, bing, bing. That never works.
Instead, ask to discuss your role and responsibilities.
This begins to open up the reasons why they might be trying to quiet fire you but aren't really telling you. It's safe, neutral ground.
Bring in a written version of your job description and an employee handbook if one is available. Once you do that, insist on feedback.
If you're being quiet fired, you're being quiet fired by someone that obviously doesn't want to take the time to sit down and work with you.
This can give you insight into where you stand and why.
Okay, I see. They're really unhappy. Maybe they really are trying to quiet fire me. Or maybe it was they actually think you're doing better than you think you are and you're reading into things that aren't really there.
You may need to take this to human resources, but before you do, take some time for introspection.
You really have to ask yourself, could I be part of the problem?
Scott says people too often make the mistake of jumping to the conclusion that this is all their boss's fault.
My boss is a jerk. He wants to fire me. He won't tell me. Am I part of it? What gives you the reason to do that now is you'll be clear on expectations. You will have gotten feedback.
After you consider that feedback, ask what you can do to improve the situation.
If the boss indeed isn't giving you a raise and hasn't given you one for a long time, talk to them about why you need a raise, why it's important for you.
If your boss is blowing off your one-on-one meetings,
You need to stop canceling. That's important to me.
if that still doesn't work, seek help from human resources.
Tell them the discussions you've had, how you got clear on expectations, the feedback you've gotten.
Show them your documentation and ask for their help.
Making sure that my boss is clear that you can't just get away with quietly firing me. You have to give me a chance to improve.
In the end, know that you're not alone.
LinkedIn ran a poll that showed a staggering 83% of us feel like we have experienced quiet firing before.
This is not a battle you have to take on by yourself.
It helps to talk to other people. I better do something about it sooner versus later. So that outside perspective really can help.
Fighting back against quiet firing at the top of the list.